Hey, my name is Kyle Peterson, and you may know me from the Kyle Peterson YouTube channel, and I'm here to tell you that your childhood was trash if you didn't collect Jakks Classic Superstars. It was interesting. It was definitely a tale of 2 years of San Diego, for sure. I've been there twice, and I saw it last year where it was no Hollywood, this year Hollywood, so it was two different experiences, for sure.
A little bit more hectic this year.
Yeah. I think I enjoyed it more last year, I think.
Yeah, you probably could go see more, go at your own little pace and stuff, right?
Yeah, it was just different. I mean, both had their pros and cons, but it was just different. I don't know. It's something to experience once, and every year I say I'm never going to go back, but we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, if you're close, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, if I lived around there, I'd be there, no problem. But it's like you got to fly, and it drives me nuts that you pay all the money to get there. You pay money for a ticket, and you're not even guaranteed the exclusives. Like you have to get a lottery ticket and hopefully get that. I mean, it's like that's pretty wild.
Yeah. So where are you located?
I'm in Des Moines, Iowa.
Okay. So
Midwest.
Closer than us, but not close enough.
Yeah.
Exactly. Not close enough to justify it. That's cool. I think I got stoked when I saw those real Ghostbuster figures.
I knew they were coming. I talked to those guys every once in a while, so I kind of knew. But boy, $202, that's a pricey.
Yeah.
But that's Mondo for you.
Yeah, I mean, they put out a good product. But I guess they're gonna do like the single Ghostbusters are gonna be like 100 or something like that. I heard.
It's supposed to be a 2-pack, so it'll be each single Ghostbuster with a small ghost and a big ghost for $202.
Yeah, but I heard that I think they're gonna have single pack ones too.
Oh, really?
Some point.
That would make
which I
people
hope
happy,
so, because I don't really care about the ghosts. I just want the 4 main ghosts, and I'll take a Janine in a outfit too, and I'll do all that too. But
yeah, it would be nice. I mean, it'd be a nice little 4 standalone figures, just a one and done collection. That'd be pretty cool looking.
Yeah, nice and easy. But other than that, I'll be honest. It's probably been a good 20 years since I've dabbled or watched anything wrestling. Where you, on the other hand, you kind of literally wrote the book or one of the books on it. So obviously your love for wrestling transitioned into you writing your own book about all the Jakks specific figures.
The nice thing, if you haven't watched in 20 years, you'll know pretty much all these wrestlers. If you think back to the ones you watched 20 years ago, that's what the book's pretty much about. So that's good.
Interesting. Perfect. So what got you into that? Like, obviously you probably grew up watching wrestling, loved it so much, and just became like the go-to guy for it, right? So they probably reached out to you to take care of the book.
I did it myself. So I reached out to them and said, hey, here was my idea. I can give you the whole backlog of the story here, of course.
Yeah, let's start there. Let's hear what happened.
So there's the book right there, The Complete Guide to the Jakks Classic Superstars series by yours truly. So it's about 700 pages. I mean, it's like that's like a college textbook. I mean, we all know what that's like, but runs down every single series, every tag team series, 3-pack, exclusive, limited edition. I mean, you name it, it's in this book, and it's actually my personal collection. So I have a mint on card set and a loose set. So I took all the pictures myself, did all of that. So very, very labor of love. Yeah, if there ever was one. So so long story short, I collected that when they were coming out. So they started coming out in 2004 through 2010. I was collecting it. Actually, I wouldn't collect action figures anymore if it wasn't for this toy line. I was in college, and it was one of those weird, turning of the page. I mean, we all have it with our either music or action figure collecting or whatever. It's like, okay, I'm in college. I'm moving on. I'm leaving my action figures behind. You don't have any money when you're in college either, so I couldn't really afford to collect stuff. However, I go to Toys R Us just randomly, and I walk in and I see the Ultimate Warrior Series 1 from this toy line, and I could not believe it because it's a lot of revisionist history. I don't know if that's the right word, but a lot of people look at this line right now and like, oh, it's no big deal. We've always had that. Well, back in 2004, it was a different time. Articulation of toys was different, and what we got for collections was different. It was different, and a lot of people are spoiled because we have 1,000 different toy lines now. But in 2004, there was never classic wrestling figures released. It was new characters, but not the classic guys from the 80s, 70s, and 90s, things like that. So it was truly a game changer toy line. And I about fell to my knees seeing Ultimate Warrior. He was my favorite of all time. Seeing that figure in person the first time, I just couldn't believe my eyes, couldn't believe what I was seeing. And it just went from there. It snowballed. I'm like, wow, this is series one. I'm going to get on the ground floor, collected it as it went. And that's one of the big questions I have is people give me is like, well, how'd you afford that whole collection? Well, I bought them as they were happening for $7.99 off the shelf. Cause I mean, now you got some that are well over $100. Well, I didn't pay $100. I paid $8. So
Yeah,
a little different. But long story short, I collected the line. I collected it through the end. And then a couple of years ago, I said, man, it would be really cool to have a loose set. And I'd been doing every single Tuesday on my channel, my YouTube channel, I do a Jakks Classic Superstars deep dive. It goes along with the book. Is pretty fun now. But I said, how cool would it be to have a loose and a loose set and a mint on card set? So started looking around. I did a video where I went to Chicago, bought a whole guy's complete set, and then I had two. And I said, well, I'm going to use this as unboxing on my YouTube channel. So I unboxed them on my YouTube channel. And then as I was doing that, I was like, wow, how cool would it? There's a He-Man book. There's G.I. Joe books. There's Star Wars books. Nobody has a wrestling book on the Classic Superstars in a detailed like encyclopedia like this. And I said, I don't know anybody else that first loves the line as much as I do. And secondly, somebody that has all the product to take pictures of to be able to get it done. So adding those two together, I said, man, I think I'm going to do this. And I started putting an outline together, started to figure out how I wanted to do it. But I knew I needed the sign off of Jeremy Padower. Now, Jeremy is a toy industry icon. I mean, he runs Jazzwares right now with the AEW figures, Squishmallows, Pokemon. But he was the head of Jakks back in the day. Nice. So we did all the Jakks stuff. He worked for Mattel back in the day with some of the He-Man line. So pretty famous in the toy world. And I've always wanted to meet the guy for a long time. And I said, well, I'm going to San Diego Comic-Con. This was last year. I said, Jeremy will be there. I'll try to get a meeting with him. Simple as that. And I just kind of found my way into a meeting with Jeremy and totally got his blessing. He loved the idea. And I knew he would, just knowing how he's passionate about this kind of stuff. And who wouldn't like to have their legacy kind of put in print, you know, a little bit too. Yeah. So it was very awesome. He opened up his archives to me, gave me stuff to use. We had a long, like 3-hour interview that we put in the book and talking about it and really dissecting the line. And to have his stamp of approval really told me, hey, all systems go. And then the rest was history. Here's the book. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Long story short.
Cool. Yeah. Like you and Nick said, the passion project, and you kind of willed it into existence. That's pretty cool. And I like how that's your story, because everyone we talk to that collects action figures kind of has that same story where you grow up a little bit and you leave that stuff behind. And then there's that one catalyst that sucks you back in, and here you are in your 40s, still going strong. And, you know, for me, it was actually a little bit later in the game, but it was the 2007 Transformers movie. When that line came out, like I jumped in on that, and that just snowballed into collecting everything from Transformers, G.I. Joe, and all that stuff. Yeah, everything under the sun, and like gave me the passion for it. Not like you, where I collected everything or wrote a book, but
you don't know that.
I haven't wrote a book yet.
Yeah, there you go.
You could do that. He proves it's possible, man.
Yeah,
true.
It could be done.
Don't do the Jakks, wrestling figures. That's already been done. Do something different.
I'll do the Hasbro wrestling figures.
That's been done about 5 times.
Yeah. No, but like I said, it's been a while since I've been out of the wrestling game. So the fact that, you know, that book is heavily focused on the classics, that's a little bit more appealing to me personally, because that's like, I grew up with fond memories of, like you said, the Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan, the Big Boss Man. I love the Legion of Doom because as a kid, watching the Legion of Doom, I always wanted them to just keep that damn armor on when they were fighting. As an adult, you realize, that probably wouldn't have been a good idea.
You know, and the fun thing about this book is a lot of people want to collect the line. A lot of people want to dive in. And at this point, it's really tough. It's older. It costs a lot of money. It's kind of cool to have a collection in a book. And I always relate it to me. Like, I'm a G.I. Joe guy. G.I. Joe is my favorite toy line of all time. That's where I started really getting into it. I would love to get all the old G.I. Joe stuff from the 80s and 90s. I sold all mine when I went to college. Very disappointing, but I did. And I would love to buy it all, but I just could never financially do that. However, there's books that have it all. You buy that book, it feels like you have the entire collection in this book. You can look at it. And that's, you spend the money on this book, it's like you have the collection.
Right, because it gives you that like we've talked about like the chase figures and rare figures. Like I don't remember, like I remember the toy line coming out because I consistently went to Toys R Us like all the time, and any number of toy stores, and I still to this day wander the toy aisles all the time. So I remember actually being intrigued by the action figures, like it, but it was like it took you bringing it up to be like, and I was like, oh man, I do remember seeing those coming out, and like I got excited too because I was a massive, you know, wrestling fan from like the late 80s through probably 2008, 2007, somewhere in that ballpark, um is when I kind of tapped out on it. But so I remember going through it, but you're right, like it's, you didn't, if you didn't get it now and you don't actually have the space or the time or whatever to go get those, your book is actually a fantastic placeholder, if you will,
Yeah.
almost, or it
And a lot of people
fills
use it
that.
as a checklist too.
Right.
Yeah, there
I
you
was
go.
gonna
Yeah.
say is I was gonna ask. I haven't like looked at the actual physical book, but is there like I read the synopsis and as we were going through it, or as you know, we were talking about like what we were doing on the episode, and I was like, oh man, I wonder if there is like an actual checklist like in the back, and like
Yeah,
I'm
you can
like,
go through it and it's all there. So everything is there. So even and a
yeah,
lot of people have said, "Wow, I can't believe they made that and this." And I mean, there's a lot of deep exclusives that people didn't even know existed that, you know, are they're seeing them for the first time, and that's
That's
pretty
right.
cool as well. And that's one cool thing about the book too is it's really quite the line. I mean, like I said, it brought me back into action figure collecting. If I didn't collect, if the line didn't come out, would I be collecting? Would I have a YouTube channel? Who knows? It like truly, it feels weird to say, but it did course change my life, I guess, in a
Yeah.
way. So it's pretty cool about all that, and I wanted to do it as much justice as I could. And it's really cool that a line like that I'm so attached to. Now I think when people, hopefully, when they think of Jakks Classic Superstars, you know, they might think of the wrestlers, they might think of Jeremy Padower, but they might think of me somewhere in there. So I'll be
Yeah.
forever kind of attached to this between my YouTube videos and the book. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool feeling for sure.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
No,
I mean,
that is awesome.
yeah,
And like
and
you guys said, like with the book, right? It allows people who can't go back in time and get these cheap or afford them now. They can live vicariously through your hard work and dedication throughout the years. And
or
you know,
Yeah.
that's
or maybe
you know,
your book kickstarts their love for it, and 20 years down the road somebody else does an entire channel based off of like using your book as, you know, their gateway drug, if you will, and
Yeah.
then they hunted down all the figures, you know, in order of page 1 through 650 or whatever, you know. I don't know, like
Yeah.
it who knows what happens on the internet now. A lot of things we probably don't want to talk about, but
I'm sure.
I still think it's pretty cool that like you did the legwork and just willed it into existence like that. To me, I always thought it would be the other way around, where these companies say, you know, we want to do this, and then they find the right fit. But it's interesting hearing that the right fit reached out to them and they were receptive. That's probably the coolest part right there. Instead of them brushing you off and saying, you know, get out of here,
Yeah.
they heard what you had. They heard, you know, whatever pitch you gave them, and they were in. And that's the coolest part for me,
Yeah.
is to hear that.
yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, and a lot of companies don't celebrate their history. They're looking forward. They're looking a year ahead, 2 years ahead. They're not looking at this because, hey, this line's been dead for 2010. It ended. I mean, it's been dead
Yeah.
for a long time. So they're just like, move on. What's the next thing? And I don't know. But yeah, there is people out there. I mean, there's a lot of people for other toy lines as well that celebrate the past. And
Yeah.
it's good. It's a good feeling.
I think they should learn that, you know, as toy collectors, we can't let the past go.
Yeah, there you go.
That's why we do it. That's
why
why we do what we
that's why
do.
they're
So
in business now, is because we can't let the past go.
Yeah.
yeah.
Nick, did you say is Jack still in business?
Does Jakks still make toys?
It's so funny you say that, because a lot of people have said that lately, because they were so tied into wrestling figures back in the day. But they do have a new line. I got it right here. I actually have one real handy here. I don't know if you've seen these running around.
Yep.
That is
Oh,
Jakks.
they make those?
And then if you've seen the Super Mario movie figures and the Sonic the Hedgehog, I mean, they're making all that kind of stuff too. So
okay.
They're also making the Nintendo figures. So I got
Yeah.
like Link, and they got Zelda, Samus.
I think they're the number 4 toy company in the world, or 4 or 5, I think. So they're still a big one, but they make a lot of stuff that just out of sight, out of mind to adults like us.
I go to the toy aisle every week, right? I don't buy anything 99% of the time, but every once in a while I'm like, nope, that hit me. And I see those figures, like the Simpsons figures, the Mario figures, or whatever. I don't think I ever looked at who made them, because if I remember correctly, and you'll be able to tell me if I'm wrong, Jakks was very prominent, like on the card, wasn't it? Like the name was on the wrestling figures. Like,
yeah, it was down in the corner, and it had those colorful graphics, or whatever you want to call them.
Right, but it was very it was very specifically like, these are the Jakks wrestling action figures. So I think it's one of those, it's not the Jakks Simpsons figures, right? Like, I'm sure it is, but like, it's not as kind of
in your face
about it. Yeah.
Which is the thing about Jakks too that I think is pretty cool is, we get all these action figures coming out that are really good and they cost a pretty penny. But then you got Jakks, like those Simpsons figures are what, $10, something like that.
They're fairly cheap.
Yeah. And then the Link, I got the Link figure, and he was $10. And for what they are, the detail, the sculpt, the articulation that they're putting out for $10 is insane.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of took me by surprise when you said that getting into that wrestling line back in the early 2000s, they were $8. Like, were those are 6-inch figures, right?
Yeah. I think they were $8.99.
Even that long ago, a 6-inch figure for $8.99, that's really inexpensive.
Yeah. Compared to nowadays, where you're at 20 to 24.
Yeah,
or 50 in some cases.
Yeah.
Or, some of the other toys being like 100. Like, toys nowadays are drastically different than they were even 15 years ago. Like, the amount of detail and the amount of effort companies are putting in to make them something that people want to drop $50 to $100 on.
Yeah.
Whereas, even before the Jakks things, it was like everything was pumped out in mass quantity for whatever reason, and they were and a lot of them were inexpensive. But how long did it take you to get like some of the exclusives for the Jakks?
I pretty much got them all as they were coming out, so it wasn't terrible. But there was, I don't know, last 7 years or so, I went back and got some of the really expensive ones that, like, there's Ultimate Warriors that are one of 20, and they were only given to him. So I got some of those.
That's crazy.
I mean, that was Warrior was quite the businessman. He said, "Hey, I'll sign a deal with you, Jakks, but in return, I want 4 different figures. Technically, I want one of them to make 15 of them, one of them to make 20, knowing the rarity." And then he got those personally and sold them personally. So
that's crazy.
obviously very expensive,
Really?
as you can imagine. He did the same thing for Mattel too.
Interesting.
So good businessman for sure.
I was gonna say, who knew Ultimate Warrior was a smart businessman?
Yeah.
So there are. So have you met Warrior?
I met him when I was a very small kid. I was probably 9 or 10 years old at a house or at a Superstars taping back in the day. And it's a weird story, but the bathroom in the back was broken at the Coliseum or whatever. And all the wrestlers were using the side bathroom behind the bleachers that was kind of off the beaten path. And we'd see wrestlers going in all night, my dad and I just, a little kid had to go to the bathroom, and I just happened to go in there, and there's Ultimate Warrior standing at the urinal. Geez. He had a leather coat on, still had his makeup on, and I'm just sitting there, just standing there, and just like, I know he comes out of there, walks by, and I just said, "Warrior," and he just put his hand on my head and gave me one of these. I don't remember if he washed his hands or not. I don't know. It doesn't matter, I guess. But I did. So that was my meeting. The sad thing was, he died after a Monday Night Raw. And that weekend, he was supposed to be in Minneapolis for an autograph signing meet and greet, and I was going to that, so I missed him by
Oh,
like
man.
7 days. Just a bummer.
That
Yeah.
stinks.
Yeah.
But
Warrior
you know
was
what?
always
That chance encounter to me would personally be better than like waiting in line, stand to meet him. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
you see people at like conventions where they're staying at a hotel and they're coming down the elevator with one of the guests that they're going there to see, and they just have that, quick little interaction that's just personal to them. That's
Yep.
cooler than standing in line, getting an autograph or a picture, just that quick little interaction. That's just because it's personal,
Yeah.
He
Yeah, I
might
mean,
not
it
have said
wasn't
anything to you. He might
Yeah.
have,
It wasn't
might have
much,
put
but
urine in your hair.
yeah,
Yeah.
he might.
let me wipe my hands. They're out of paper towels, as kids Harold do.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
No, that's pretty
Worth
cool.
That's pretty good.
So being in the early 2000s, was it hard to be a completist as it came along? Because I can't imagine it's like nowadays where the internet is at your fingertips and you have complete collections and checklists already online. So, we know what's coming out over the next, year and a half.
Yeah.
Back then, I'm sure you didn't. It was a lot more of going to Toys R Us, going to Toy Store and finding it there.
It was a different time for sure. So what happened was, obviously I didn't know they were coming out. I wasn't paying attention, but once I bought them, I started looking them up, and then I found the message boards and stuff that, kind of gave you a peek what's coming. However, it was a different time too, because there was a Walmart exclusive line that was 3-packs, and there was a Toys R Us exclusive line that was 2-packs. And those were not solicited by Jakks or anybody. It was just the surprise, hey, they showed up one day. And it was wild because back then California always got everything first. Probably the shipyards coming from China, whatever. California always got it. So people would post online, oh my gosh, look what I found at Toys R Us in Los Angeles or whatever. And it's, the Legion of Doom 2-pack. And then after a few series, I figured out the pattern, and I knew once the message board said California hit, I knew exactly 2 weeks from Friday, my Toys R Us would hit, and it was like clockwork.
Nice.
So I ended up figuring that out. The Walmart was a little more difficult. It was interesting. I started collecting right as I was finishing up college, and then I got a job out of college where I was, I was a salesman on the road. I was selling Sunny Delight and Hormel and all kinds of crazy stuff, and I was in charge of Walmarts basically for the state. So I was in a different Walmart store every single day talking to the managers. And of course, I'm going in and I'm going to check the wrestling and the figures first thing. So it wasn't as hard for me when you're hitting 30 Walmarts a week or something like that. I can usually find everything. So
yeah, that's pretty cool. It's one of those things. I don't know how you feel about it, but the way we are in collecting right now, I love the fact that I can guarantee myself almost anything I want. But I do miss those hunting days where you go out, you don't know what you're going to find. The only way you can get it is if you find it in the store, and then that rush when you do find it.
I love it. And that's one thing I say in a lot of my videos. People forget. People want to go to the store and find everything they want every time they go. I mean, yeah, that'd be great and all, but part of collecting for me is the thrill of the hunt. And sometimes you get, just recently I've been looking for a Turtles of Grayskull Merman figure. It's a Ninja Turtles He-Man crossover line.
Oh, yeah.
And the Merman's a Walmart exclusive and has not been in any of my Walmarts. I've been looking for like 3 months. No sign of it here. And then randomly last week when I went to San Diego, I was in Chula Vista, California, of all places, on the Mexico border. What do I find? Merman there. And it gave you that rush, that thrill of excitement. I was like, this is one of the things. I mean, I love collecting from every avenue, but I love finding out about items. I love pre-ordering items. I love checking them out online. I love hunting the stores. I love opening them. I mean, there's so much to enjoy out of the whole process for me. And the hunting part is super fun because that's, where I cut my teeth with my dad as a kid, him collecting starting lineups back in the day and me getting, the X-Men figures along there and wrestling figures and stuff. And I mean, my dad would wake me up at, 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning. Kyle, we're going to Target. We're going to Walmart. There's a card show. There's it's every little kid's dream that, oh my gosh, we're getting up and we're going to do all this stuff. And so it was a lot of fun. It brings you back those memories.
I think I'm more jealous that you were like, yeah, my dad did that. I'm like, oh, I didn't really know my dad. Anyway.
And my dad, until recently, he did a lot of unboxings on the channel with me too. So that was kind of fun.
That's cool.
Nice.
Yeah. My dad never understood this. He respected it and never judged me or gave me grief for it. Even when I was a kid, he never understood it, never did it himself, but he was always the one that if I wanted to go to the store, if I got my allowance, if I got money before I had a license in a car, he would always take me. and
Mhm.
he would be following me down every single aisle, pressing every fucking button on every single toy that he sees the whole time, just embarrassing the shit out of me, not on purpose, but yeah. So he was always my my mule, I guess you could say.
Yeah, my dad, I'm at San Diego Comic Con snapping pictures of like Universal Monster figures and texting him like, "Oh, Dad, look at this, look at this."
That's awesome.
Nice.
That's pretty cool.
That is
What do you
cool.
what does he think about the starting lineup figures coming back?
Yeah, he was not a fan at all. So they came back and I got one, and I would say, I got it for science, Dad. We're gonna check this out together. We're gonna see what's going on. And he was not a fan at all. And they were all canceled now. They're not back. They were a
Yeah.
massive flop. So McFarlane stepping back up, McFarlane getting back deep into the game as well. So
Yeah. See, the
Yeah.
thing is, I want action figures, right? Like, actual action figures. So the starting lineup was kind of good for me. I don't like basketball. I'm a baseball guy.
yeah.
So, I wanted them to get to the baseball figures so I could determine if I want them or not. And obviously they didn't. The series 2 is supposed to be football. Obviously we didn't make it past series 1. You can get it for like $5 now if you hit a
Yeah.
loss or whatever. But they were like $55, $60 or something ridiculous. And you didn't get much out of it. And I get licensing and stuff like that, but I
Yeah.
don't really
And
need
the
the
hard
official
part,
Nike logo on there. And
yeah, and the hard part of that was they threw in those NFTs when NFTs were all the craze. I mean, they're still around, but everybody thought that was the new big thing, and I never even understood it from the get go. And that's what it was. That's what put that price point so high. And it's like,
really,
you think way more people care about NFTs. So then Hasbro took away the NFTs a couple months later, and then they sold them for like $28, $29, and they still didn't
Yeah.
sell. And then now, yeah, like you said, they're at Ross for $5. So
Yeah. I
tough
mean,
go.
Were they still the same style where it was just
no,
like a pose?
No, they were
6-inch fully
articulated.
posable.
Really?
Yeah, they were pretty nice for what they were, but it's just
They came with
it's a
display
mess.
stands and flight
Mhm.
stands because they're the basketball ones. So you can like actually do like the dunking poses and stuff like that.
I think I completely missed those being a thing.
They looked good for what they were.
Yeah.
It's just the price point, and that's why I really want them to get to baseball. Because I forget when, but maybe it was probably like 15 plus years ago. There was like a 4-inch action figure line that was like baseball figures. I think McFarlane might have done them, but they were like actually posable and stuff, so you can get them in actual batting stances.
Yeah.
And move around. Like that's my dream. Is like I just want some of those in 6-inch, fully articulated.
Just gonna have to hold on to that dream a little longer.
Yeah.
Who knows?
It's
could
probably
come
never
back.
gonna happen. It's well, Todd's doing them, or Todd's gonna do them, but he's gonna go back. He's going back to the roots of like pre-posed.
Who was your favorite wrestler as a kid?
Ultimate Warrior. Yeah.
Through and through, huh?
Through and through. I was a Warrior guy. I mean, I love the Warrior. I love Terry Funk. That was another favorite of mine as a kid. I mean, pretty different ends of the spectrum there. I loved Ric Flair. I love the Legion of Doom. I love Demolition. Sting. I love the face painted guys, especially.
Yeah.
But tons of wrestlers I did like throughout the years.
You didn't like?
I
Or
did
did.
like it. Yeah, tons of
Okay,
them.
I was like, I mean, let's be clear. We all have our least favorite wrestlers. You're like,
I
couldn't care less.
hated Hogan as a kid. I didn't understand it. I'll never forget on the old schoolyard, the old playground, WrestleMania 6. I remember everybody was Team Hogan. I was Team Warrior. I said, Warrior's going to do it. And everybody's like, there's no way. There's no way. I'm like, oh, it's going to happen. Warrior's going to win. And I remember coming back that Monday at school, walking in. I walked in there like I was the man. I told you. I told you. I told you.
Forget
So I
you.
told you.
Oh,
So-
Yeah,
jeez.
I think. So completely on the same path. I used to like so long ago that I think I was probably 6-ish, somewhere in that ballpark. There was a kid who used to come, like it was like an after school program, and there was this kid who was like, I'm gonna say like 10 or 11. He used to come like 2 times a week as dressed as the Ultimate Warrior with like armbands and everything.
That was
like,
me.
Yeah, I mean, if you lived in New Hampshire, maybe, probably. But no, like it's weird that you say that Warrior is your favorite character because that's literally like one of my earliest memories of it, and I have no idea. I don't remember his name. I don't know what happened to him because he was that much older than me, and I moved eventually, and I wasn't even in the same town, and I don't know where he ever lived because it was like a close enough small towns. So, but he came there every day, and 3 times a week he was just dressed as the ultimate warrior, like armbands. Every once in a while had the face paint on too, and was like body
That's
slamming little
dedication.
kids, and it was hilarious.
Legend.
I was like, but yeah,
Jesus,
yeah,
that's that's wild.
that's what 80s, man. Who knows?
I never got into like the storylines as a kid, right? When I was watching, it was fun, right? To me, it was just fun. I wanted to watch this. I can't remember too much about like my age when I got out of it or anything like that, but I never had any of the toys as a kid. In fact, it was like a month ago where I got my first Hasbro figure. I had to get the body slam and Hulk Hogan, and I always played the WrestleMania for the NES.
Oh yeah,
Like I wore the shit out of that game. Just between like I would never pick the same character twice. Today I want to be the big boss man. I want to be Ted DiBiase. Like every time I was just someone different. And watching wrestling, but never collecting when I was like, or never not collecting because I'm a kid, but never getting any of the figures, which is weird considering I had literally everything else. But it's one of those things that kind of like wrestling kind of sticks with you, right? As you watch it as a kid, and it sticks with you even if you get out of it. Because I've never lost any like admiration for those characters.
yeah.
I still look at them and it's still like all those memories, those fond memories, and they're so iconic. And especially the Warrior, right? You look at the way he was all painted up and he was just so like menacing, but
Yeah.
it was
a lot of fun to watch.
It was the 80s, man. These were superheroes, right? This was like isn't that what it's like was dubbed like the superhero era of wrestling? Like
pretty much.
they were
larger
than life. Yeah. Like I think that's why that sticks to me so much because I never, I got out of it before there was Stone Cold or The Rock or anything like that.
Good times, bud.
Yeah. I was Andre the Giant, The Undertaker, all that stuff. So I did miss quite a lot. The Attitude Era. Although I did go in and out of consciousness a little bit with like Triple H and like Degeneration X and all that because everyone's running around school telling you to suck it. You kind of like, all right, I want to get in on this.
Why am I being told to suck it? I really need to investigate this.
Yeah.
So so you obviously grew up watching wrestling there, Kyle. So how did you continue? Do you still watch wrestling right now?
I am a creature of habit and I never give up anything. And I don't know what that means. I should go see a psychiatrist maybe, but I never give up. So I've watched wrestling ever since I started in like shortly after WrestleMania 3. I never stopped. I mean, I've seen every single thing of wrestling basically ever since. I've never missed a Monday Night Raw. I mean, I was watching Prime Time before that. I'm a creature of habit and I never miss. I mean, it's the same thing with my YouTube channel. I never miss a day. I've been doing it almost 4.5 years. I do 4 videos a day. I never miss.
Crazy.
Yeah, I'm very, very consistent for sure. Yes. Consistency is key. That's for sure.
Like, yeah, no, like that's impressive. Meanwhile, I'm over here like, I don't want to even write anything. But no.
Yeah. But yeah, I spend all the weekend recording all my videos for the week for the most part. So I put in like a good 16 hours probably every Sunday just recording unboxings and stuff, and then I edit them all throughout the week. And yeah, very very consistent.
Smart. That's smart. That's not even like a bad idea. Mike, we should make notes. Anyway, no, like wrestling was like I got into wrestling. I don't even remember how. Maybe it was that kid with the Ultimate Warrior. Maybe that's why I started watching. Who knows? I don't remember. Like, that was so long ago. I'm like, I don't like. There's a starting point in wherever it hit. But I remember sitting on the phone, trying to get in touch with people to get the pay-per-views because my mom was like, "If you can actually get through, I'll buy it for you." And I was like, "Sweet!" So I'd sit there on the phone for like an hour and a half waiting for somebody to authorize it, and then eventually,
Heck, I remember watching the scrambled pay-per-view signal. You'd sometimes see it, you'd sometimes hear it, and I'd just sit there and try to guess what's going on.
We're trying to get scrambled porn, and Kyle's over here getting scrambled wrestling.
Let me buy it, right? But no, like, and then as it grew and it became, it started getting huge in like the late, like even early '90s. Not even like the like it blew up in the late '90s. Let's be serious. Like Vince McMahon as like escalated it like a lot there. Whatever whatever your people's feelings are on Vince McMahon, he brought wrestling and made it as large as it is today. Let's be clear, like let's not forget about ECW and WCW and AEW and any number of other smaller ones that I'm forgetting to name right now that have all produced amazing wrestlers and everything like that. I'm not trying to downplay them, but it was like the early '90s. Like you're right. Like I used to never miss a Raw. I used to never miss a SmackDown. Like it was a lot to keep up with in the '90s. Trying to watch all of that stuff and keep the storylines straight, but it did produce a lot of fantastic entertainment. And for the record, I was WWF. I never actually really watched WCW. Goldberg kind of made me flip flopping back and forth, and like Sting did. But WCW always felt like washed up WWF for some reason. I think it was.
Yeah, I was a big ECW guy during the Attitude Era, so that's what got me. Where a lot of people were jumping out, I was about there, I think, and ECW was such a breath of fresh air that I needed to keep my passion alive. And without ECW, I don't think I would have continued watching wrestling.
Because it gave you a whole different aspect of everything. I think my buddy, I'm pretty sure it was like my buddy Ryan at the time, because he's still massive into wrestling, and he was like, "Hey, you got to check out ECW," and I think he threw on some sort of like Taz match or something like that, and like I think it was at I'm drawing a blank. Who had the
Sandman?
sticks? No, it wasn't Sandman, but maybe it was. I don't know. I
with the kendo stick. Yeah, it was Sandman.
Yeah. Then it was him. And there was it was him, and I think there was like a couple other matches that he showed me. Yeah. Sabu. Yeah.
Sabu. Yep.
That was another. Pregnancy brain has blown up my brain for the past 3 years, so I'm just excited when I finally remember the word I'm trying to say. Sabu, I think, was a match that he showed me too, and I was like, "This is nuts! Let's watch more." And then he like busted out his VHS tapes, and we watched more.
So what were they doing differently?
It was more in your face. There was cussing. There was blood, barbed wire, hardcore matches.
Okay.
I mean, super hot chicks. I mean, it was very un-PC and, not safe for network TV. And then, they just used music. You know how wrestling in WWE or whatever, they use generic theme music or whatever. Well, they used like Welcome to the Jungle for Bam Bam Bigelow. They used real music, not illegally, but they did it. I mean, it was just very counterculture and in your face. And, when you're a late teen and a teenager, you want stuff like that. I mean, it was, and really they gave root to the Attitude Era when the WWE jumped into that was because of ECW.
So in your book, Kyle, do you get into any of like the stories or anything behind the actual individual characters, or is it more or less just the
yeah, I mean, you could go on. I mean, I could turn this 700-page book into a 7,000-page book. I would have known the stories and background. So it's more of here is the figure, here's where it was released, here's the year it was released, some on the rarity, and here's the notes on this, Bob Orton, some figures have the A for Ace on his boots, some do not. Here's the variations. So it's just kind of the figures, and here's the line it's in and all that kind of stuff, and it's his fourth figure line or whatever.
Gotcha. So more or less specific to the figures and stuff like that, which I guess makes sense for the type of book, because if it was me, that's kind of what I'd want.
Yeah, I mean, it would be seventh if Hulk Hogan. I mean, you'd have a 50-page book, right? I mean, longer than that. So I mean, it's where do you draw the line? So you got to cut it off somewhere.
Yeah,
right. Out of curiosity, because I'm aware but never really dabbled into it. So some of the multi-packs, were they just like bundled of single figures, or were they actual exclusives?
Yeah, they were exclusive. So it was like, I mean, they had the Freebirds, like the Fabulous Freebirds, the three of them in a pack together. There was like Demolition. There was 3 members of Demolition. They had 3 of them in there. I mean, they were all different for the most part. You would have Hulk Hogan, Brutus Beefcake, Jimmy Hart from WrestleMania. So yeah, and then the 2 packs, you'd have like the Rockers, the Legion of Doom, the Hart Foundation, the Killer Bees, Demolition, Legion, all that kind of stuff. Bushwhackers. Yep. Yep.
Okay. So some of the multi-packs had variation of other characters, but otherwise it was, basically tag teams and like
it was just like and like on some of the tag team series, it was like, here's Roddy Piper and Jimmy Snuka from the Coke, and it came with coconuts, showing that feud, and Hogan and Andre 2-pack, WrestleMania 3. Nice. So there was that kind of stuff too.
Okay, that's cool though.
Yeah,
that like it gives you like Hogan and Andre is probably one of the more iconic ones for anybody who's into wrestling. But it gives you that opportunity to get like the Hogan over the years, where he his character changed, for lack of a better term.
Like I said, I got out of wrestling for so long, but even still now, I love listening to all the stories. Right, like I'll go and I'll listen to the interviews that these people have about their time in the career and everything, and it's just all that back end business, behind the scenes stuff that they have gone through fascinates me so much. I think one of the good ones was, better ones, was when Jake the Snake was on Joe Rogan. That was a fantastic, like, hearing like all the backstories and stuff, and how like he was afraid of snakes, and Vince Vince gave him that gimmick. Like, and he was scared shitless of snakes. Like, it's just wild.
Then he saw the money he was going to get and said, well, okay, I'll get over it.
Yeah, I can figure this out. Trust me.
He had some pretty ridiculous snakes on there. Like, every once in a while I was like, they're letting that in the ring?
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys remember when the python or the cobra, I mean, bit Macho Man. I mean, that was pretty awesome. That was one of the greatest memories of my childhood, for sure. It was so cool.
I just watched a guy get bit on stage
by a cobra. I mean, they defanged it apparently, and they made him bite him. Macho Man made the snake bite Jake in the back just to prove that there was no venom in it. Said, I'm not doing it unless you do it first.
I mean, that's smart.
I don't remember that, but I remember the cobra being there, and I was like, they
didn't do it on camera. They did it backstage.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, biting Macho Man, like
that was
I definitely saw that, because again, it's one of those things where like I hear all these stories, so then I'm on YouTube, like, all right, I got to see this actually happening, just like what's the I forget the event, but it was with Mankind and with Mankind,
the Hell in the Cell,
Hell in the Cell, and he gets body slammed through the cage, hits the floor and everything, and that dude was insane. The stuff he would put himself through, and just the showmanship.
The pay-per-views, they were phenomenal.
So I promise no one from Jakks is listening, but Jakks, are those Mattel behind you?
Mattel.
Or Hasbro.
Mattel.
Yeah. Just better quality?
I mean, it's just different age. I mean, Jakks lost the license in 2010. The Mattel took over the wrestling license, and they've had it ever since. So
Yeah.
I got Jakks in a different part of my house. So
It's
Okay.
over there.
yeah, it's down there around the corner.
I didn't know if
There's
they
a
were
lot of figures.
put aside. That's a lot. Yeah, that is a lot. Is that the full collection behind you, or behind
Oh,
you what
no,
we
I
can't
mean,
see?
I got 28 of these cases that wrap around.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Is that all wrestling figures, or is that all your figures?
Just in that's just Mattel figures in the cases, yeah. So then
20. Wait, so you have 28 cases that are filled with Mattel wrestling figures?
yeah.
Is that the
Yeah,
whole
I have
line?
I have a complete collection. I don't know if I know anybody else that has every single figure ever.
That's
I'm
literally
not
insane.
even upset. I'm impressed.
Yeah, I built my basement around my collection. So I mean, I got secret doors, I got all kinds of stuff. I mean, I have a tour on my channel of my whole
And a Hell in the
collection,
Cell.
so yeah. It's wild.
Is that a prototype warrior to your right?
This one right here.
Yeah.
I guess can you see that? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
one of the granite ones, one of the limited edition warrior
Oh,
ones.
nice.
Yep.
I don't know if you do you have any like pre-production prototype stuff for wrestling at all, or
Yeah, I got a few Ultimate Warrior stuff. I'm not huge
Nice.
into that kind of stuff, but I do have some. I mean, when you've been collecting as long as I have, you come across some stuff from time to time.
You're like,
Yeah.
I accidentally stumbled into this.
Yeah, kind
so-
of.
Did you ever have a large quantity of like the older wrestling figures?
Like the rubber ones, the LJN ones back in the day, or what are we talking about?
No, like the mid '90s ones.
Bone Crunchers, Jakks Bone
Right.
Crunchers,
No, right before the Bone Crunchers ones.
Like the
Hasbro.
Hasbro ones?
Yeah, I think so. I'm like
Yeah,
trying
I
to
gotta-
think of it, and I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, I got a complete Hasbro collection right
Oh
over there.
jeez. So you've got everything, literally everything,
Yeah.
A to Z. Whoa.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I got pretty much wrestling figure history for the most part. I got all
Holy
complete
shit.
LJN, Hasbro, Jakks Classic, Jakks Ruthless Aggression, AEW, and WWE Mattel.
Do you
That's
have
it.
any
That's
of like
insane.
the
That's so much.
accessories, like the rings and stuff like that?
Yeah, yeah, yep. I got pretty much everything. Yeah, I've been running the gamut. It's been a lifelong collection for the most part.
do you have the thumb wrestlers?
No, so I hated those things, and I don't have any Bendums either. I didn't like those. Those were right before the
Okay.
Hasbros. I hated those things, so I don't have those.
As a kid, I had a couple of the thumb wrestlers. I like those. It was just so goofy and silly
I
as
didn't
a
wanna
kid.
Stick my thumb up a dude's butt. I just wasn't there for it.
It was the small of his back. Okay, it was the small of his
Okay,
back.
all right.
Okay, you keep telling yourself.
Yeah,
that.
he's
Anyway,
convinced himself.
did you ever have any of those body slam pillows?
Oh
Yeah. Yeah, I got
I'm
those
not gonna
too.
lie, that sounds amazing. Like,
My buddy had the Ultimate Warrior one. I always wanted that.
yeah,
Yep, Jake the Snake, the Big Boss Man, and the Legion of Doom are the rare ones.
Nice.
I like how there's even rare body slam pillows. You know what? Nothing surprises me anymore at this point. Is like, oh, there's a rare one of that.
Yeah.
I'm sure there is.
Yep.
Nothing can surprise me. Because we've talked about it, and like I had a number of those figures, but seriously, like your collection sounds pretty awesome. I'm actually really
Yeah,
jealous.
no shit.
Right? Well,
Like that's you're if you sold all that, holy shit.
no.
Yeah, one day it's gonna be a lot of work. That's for sure.
Over your dead body.
Yeah, got to cash out one of these days. So I don't think my kids want it, so I'll have to make it happen.
Yeah, that's true. But still, that's like just thinking about that. The fact, like, some people stick to one lane, right? Like you have like the He-Man collectors that like, oh, the 82, like the originals. You get the Ninja Turtle collectors. I want the whole original. But the fact that you went all the way through, I don't think I've met anyone else that's done that with any property. You know,
Yeah.
imagine someone going through Ninja Turtles like from 84 or whatever till now, I mean, there is a
Yep.
TMNT collector on Instagram. He probably
But there's
probably
like
has all that,
75 different turtle. There's like 75 Leonardos a year at this point. I don't know. Like it's walking into this store and I see like multiple different versions of the same turtle. I'm like, all right, this is kind of ridiculous. Like I could get on board with, Kyle being like, there's one line and
you get
there's
the pickle
one
ones.
figure versus I got 17 different Ultimate Warriors within a 4-month span. Like it would have made it a lot harder to kind of gateway into it if you were chasing it down that way.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in part of your collection, is anything, you said you got rid of like almost all your stuff, was any of the wrestlers left over, or did you just go back and
Went back. Yep, I had a couple.
Oh.
Not anything. I just a couple Ultimate Warriors, and that was it. And I started basically all over again. So,
Must have hurt
but
a
I
little
didn't
bit.
start all over again with the Turtles and He-Man and GI Joe.
Yeah.
I left that in the
Smart.
past. But I mean, I collect all the modern stuff now, and it's kind of like a lot of people say, you ever go back and get the vintage stuff? I'm like, no, I feel like I've been there, done that. I felt like I had it as a
Yeah.
kid, and I felt like I need to just leave that alone for some reason. So, but I'm complete on the GI Joe Classified and the He-Man Origins and the NECA Turtles, and there's a lot. There's a lot going on.
There
all
is.
the time.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the main reasons why I have yet to delve into the world, is because it's like there's a lot. Like
Yep.
I am like, we've talked to a number, like for example yourself. I'm like, I can't fathom that many wrestling figures, let alone this many times 14, because I could see two, that's 28, like that many wrestling figures. So it's an impressive time, it's an impressive collection. As far as the book, how many are there total? How many Jakks figures are there?
I can't remember off the top of my head. I mean, it's over 500 though. It's like 583 or something like that. I forget what it is.
And it was a 6-year period, 7-year period, right?
Yeah. 6 and
That's
change.
impressive. That's an impressive. That's an impressive line. I mean, it's not like there's any real shortage of characters to go back on, because let's characters change names. So then you got 3 figures for Mankind, right there, 4 figures.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting too in the line where you'd have a guy like Edge, who is a classic wrestler now. Back then he wasn't. And people would grow and say, what's he doing in a classic superstars line? He's not classic. Well, you're 20 years later. Hey, guess what? He is classic. It does work.
Yeah. And if I remember correctly, Edge had wrestled for a long period of time before he even hit WWF. So he already had like a decent chunk of time in wrestling, in the wrestling world. But that's so what was the last one produced?
The last figure?
Or who was in the last wave, if you will? Like for the
it was let's see, Undertaker, Roddy Piper, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, and there was one other one. So yeah, it was kind of the dying day is what it was. Very minimalistic, not a lot of paint to them, just kind of, hey, we're fulfilling our contract.
Wow.
Makes sense.
Was
there any like soft goods or anything with them at all?
Yeah, depending. I mean, not in that last series, but other series, yeah, they definitely had a lot of that. I mean, a lot of people do bag on Jakks in this day and age. Oh, that's Jakks, but people forget, like, you can't look at something in 2024 and say, oh, in 2010 it should be like 2024 technology. I mean, at the time it was way ahead of its curve. I mean, they were doing stuff that's never been done back then, but now it's old hat. We're used to all the fancy stuff now, but you got to put yourself in the time, that's for sure.
Yeah. I mean,
do you have
ankle pivot wasn't a thing?
Yeah.
It was for Sid Vicious.
Ooh.
Anyway,
too soon. Too soon.
Too soon. So you have a mint on card, and then you did the mint on card opening. Is that what you said earlier? And then you still have you have completely other loose set, correct?
So I bought I had my mint on card set I collected as it happened, and then I bought another guy's mint on card set, and I opened them all up.
That's pretty cool. Because that's
That's crazy.
That's crazy. Also, like, yeah, I was gonna say
The
that's
extra
like,
money you probably spent because that was mint on card, and you just
Yeah, it hurt. There was a few of them. Like there was a Legion of Doom pack that's worth a couple $100. It hurt to open that thing up, but
yeah.
had to do it for science. See what it was like.
that's cool though. So, what was your favorite part about doing the book?
I think just the nostalgia trip and just going back and rediscovering figures. I was like, oh, I knew this was cool, but I hadn't played with it or, messed around with it. Photography, I didn't do any photography with it for sure. So it was cool to kind of reconnect with some of those figures you kind of forgotten about.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every once in a while, like I'm going through, like we talk about, I've moved like 4 years ago at this point. And I still have 80% of my stuff packed up. So every once in a while, I'm going through a box and I'm like, oh man, I forgot I even had that. And that was, then you go down memory lane, and like if you hunted for it, you're like, oh man, I remember hunting for this. You're like, oh man, I found this. I found, wherever you found it, if you happen to have that kind of memory. So most of the time I can remember, like, yeah, man, I found that at this Target on clearance or whatever, and it's crazy. I was like, didn't even know these toys existed, and then all of a sudden I had like 17 of them.
Yep.
That was the best back in the day. Not knowing something existed at all, not even knowing a toy line existed at all, and then you just stumble upon it, and it opens up that whole world, and you're just like, holy shit! Like this is what I've always wanted. Ultimate Warrior is your ultimate character.
100%. Yep.
What's favorite figure they've ever made of him?
It has to be the original big rubber guy LJN from back in the day. It was a very rare figure. I didn't realize it was rare, but it was such a monumental time for me as a little kid to finally have an action figure of him, his first ever figure. I mean, playing with my toys, just, oh my gosh, it was a big day when that came in.
Nice. And you still have them?
I still have it.
Same one as a kid, or did you rebuy?
I rebought a minty one.
Nice.
Yeah. I
was gonna say, with the rubber, I'm sure that mask and stuff didn't hold up too well.
Yeah. Yep, 100%. So that's a tough one to get mint, and it's already super rare. It was only released in Canada, so.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeez, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And you had it as a kid?
Yeah, so I ordered a lot of my wrestling figures out of the back of the Pro Wrestling Illustrated Wrestling magazine, so that's where I got it from. Okay. So I didn't know any different. I didn't know until years later that it was a Canadian exclusive.
That's interesting. I didn't even know that magazine existed. So,
oh yeah.
I think I actually have a couple issues still kicking around somewhere because my mom never made me get rid of anything. So I have like an entire box of like Disney Adventures and like all sorts of random magazines that I've picked up over the past 35 years of my life. So I probably have some of those because I used to pick up those periodically, especially if I liked whoever was on the cover. What was your favorite storyline? If you had to pick.
Boy, I don't know. I like the Ric Flair, Terry Funk, I Quit storyline back in the day. I mean, that was the first time where I got away from cartoony wrestling, if you'd call WWF that, a little over the top, where it felt more realistic, kind of. I mean, Terry Funk putting a plastic bag over Ric Flair's head and trying to kill him and pile driving him through a table, which you just didn't see that stuff back then. So I was pretty invested as a little kid in that storyline for sure.
I think I have no idea why it's one of my more vivid memories of wrestling, but Ric Flair like came back and tried to just like have like Hulk Hogan got one of the belts from him, and Ric Flair was like, all right, so I'm back now, so if you could just give me my belt back. And Hogan's like, what are you talking about? And then that started like a feud in like the 90s, and it's like one of the like it's just this weird vivid like video memory that I could play that one scene almost, and I have no idea why. It's not anything like, it's just always there. It's kind of like that kid dressing as the Ultimate Warrior.
I was just gonna say, you got a lot of these going on. It's like the kid
I have too. Like I have that I have those weird pieces that are kind of always stuck with me. Like the first time I saw the Transformers movie was at my friend's house when I was like when I was a child. It was on when I got there for a sleepover, and then that was like my gateway into it, and I fell in love. Right, like it, but it was just like this thing that was on when I showed up for a sleepover. But yeah, I have a lot of weird video memories like that where I could just kind of play them over and over. And sure, they're 35 years old, but I don't remember what happened like last week. I couldn't pinpoint that, but I got those. When did the book come out?
It
Like
was
when did your
March.
book March?
March
wow,
1st.
so it's really, really recent.
So,
How long did we ask? How long did it take you to put together fully?
About 9 months, 10 months or so, 11 months, something like that. Yeah.
Wow.
So I really hammered it out. I mean, I stayed up basically all night for about 6 months, photographying and doing all that stuff. While most people were sleeping, I was taking care of that. So
Yeah, Jesus. Oh,
I don't mess around. When I got a goal or something, I get after it. I don't sit and lull about. So
yeah. And so how much was this all your baby? Like, how much input did you have on every aspect of the book?
yeah, it was all me. Yeah, everything. Yeah, everything
Okay.
was me.
And it was just here, Jakks, approve this, and that was it.
Yeah, they didn't. I mean, didn't even really have to approve it. I mean, it's all fair use. So I mean, it's not like I
Okay.
had to do anything. I mean, the only way I could get in trouble would be if I was using other people's content, and it's all mine, so it's all my figures.
Your
So
pictures. Okay.
yeah, yep,
Okay.
yep. So it was all good. But yeah, Jeremy, I gave him a couple. Here's the format. Here's what I'm looking at doing, and he had no problems. He said, "Oh, it looks great. Can't wait."
Interesting.
So
That's pretty cool.
yeah,
sweet.
That was definitely probably a lot of hard work.
yeah, it was definitely some work. It was. Yeah, a lot more expensive than I thought it was going to be. That's for sure. I mean, it's not cheap to
Really?
make books anymore. That's for sure. Books are not
Yeah.
cheap at all. I mean,
I
it's just
mean,
not.
Did you bankroll the whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah. I mean, I did everything. Yeah, so I didn't have any outside people or anything. So it's all
Okay.
me. It's no extra piece of the puzzle, and it's not like it's. I mean, let's be honest. It's not a Stephen King book. It's not going to sell 10 million copies or something like that. You know.
But it should.
So,
you don't know that.
yeah, it should. I agree. Everybody buy 2. Buy
Listen,
10.
I'd rather buy a Tomart's, guide over
Yeah.
a Stephen King book any day. Okay.
There you go. Yeah, I 100% agree. So.
It's I love those books. I still have the old GI Joe one. I think it was the full first a real American Hero run. I still have that, and like you said, flipping through and looking at the pictures, and it's just like whether it was just seeing them on the peg or actually having them as a kid, it does spark that like nostalgia in your mind of like, oh shit, like that's cool,
Yeah.
and like, or even better, I didn't know that existed. You remember like the old Sears catalogs back in the day too. I wish someone would like. That's another book that we need is someone just to find all those Sears advertisements from the Sears catalog of the toys and just a full book, like the complete guide to Sears. Like,
Yeah.
I bet
those
if I go through
are always so good.
I bet if I go through enough bins, I'll find enough. I could probably piece together some flyers for some stores.
Those are so cool. And you look it through, you're like, all right, that one's badass. H, who's that? And you look over at the little index and match it up. You're like, oh, that's who it is. Oh, it's so good.
My kid enjoys the Target one that comes out around the holiday time.
Yeah,
he enjoys.
It's definitely the
going
closest thing.
through and it's the closest thing we have to a physical thing.
Yeah, but those Sears books, those were thick. Those were almost like hardbound. That was almost like the phone book.
Yeah.
They came out like once a month too.
I just remember it at Christmas time.
Yeah, I don't remember it that often, but
you had to like. So I think you had to sign up for it. The only reason I know this is because like I was at my friend's mom's house and she had like a stack of them, and I was like, I think I went into it was like I thought this was like a once. Like no, it comes out every month or every other month, and I was like, that is a lot. That is a lot of paper. That is like looking back, I'm like, that's a massive waste. Like,
yeah,
because but it was also one of those things where it was like, we didn't have TV, like we didn't have phones to scroll, so it was great reading material. When you were kind of bored, you're like, let me flip through this Sears catalog. Oh, look.
I remember keeping one of my parents when I was a kid, like in my room, because with their blessing. But I always remember, because I'd always flip it open and just look at all the toys and stuff, and I remember like Starcom was in there and stuff like that, and it was always like just dreaming, things that you'll never get, but dreaming and like hoping and wishing and stuff. If only Sears was still around. That's why they went out of business, because they stopped putting out the catalogs.
It is still around. It's online.
So Toys R Us is still around too.
No, they're actually around.
Yeah, I went to the Mall of America one, the big store of the Mall of America. It's there. Yeah. It's interesting for sure.
They never left Canada, of all places. And then they started putting feelers out there, opening up back in JCPenney
Macy's or whatever. Yeah. The outlets.
Yeah. So you went to the Mall of America one. That's pretty impressive. That's
it was interesting.
It cool?
I mean, it was cool for what it is. It's not quite the same, but it's in that huge mall, but it was a big store. So better than nothing.
It's funny. I say I miss Toys R Us and all that, but I think I more or less missed the fact that it was a chain standalone toy store. That's all it was. It was a toy store, not a department store. And the fact that like my daughter is never going to experience running through a pure toy store. Whereas I look back as, not necessarily a kid, but like a teenager with my own car when I was back into collecting, Toys R Us sucked. Like Toys R Us sucked. Like it was overpriced compared to other places. They never had any good stuff. Like I almost never bought anything from Toys R Us. It was always Walmart or Target or local like toy or comic store. So,
which is kind of what we like. That's what we have now. That's it. That's all that's left.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. I'm saying it's like I'm like torn because like I miss the idea of a big toy store that's just a toy store. But when I actually look back at like the nuts and bolts of it, it wasn't a good store for me.
I mean, so I think the thing was Toys R Us was like most of the toy stores, like even KB Toy Works and KB Toys or whatever their company name was when they went out. Everything was like it was either MSRP or more, right? Like Toys R Us did like
KB was like 2 toys for $5.
I don't know. I always found them to be MSRP, but anyway. But no, Toys R Us was always it was hit or miss. You just had to hit the sales, and then you could find it. But for the most part, by the time the sale hit, like
the good stuff was gone.
Any of the chase figures, was gone.
Yeah, so they're good for like Legos and like video games, but other than that, for like action figures, obviously they're good for Jakks, classic wrestlers. But aside from that, for me, because like I said, I wasn't collecting that. There wasn't much for me, unfortunately. But again, I miss the fact that I miss the idea of a full-on toy store that I could bring my daughter to, let her run around, go crazy, because they didn't care. They let the kids play. I was riding a bike through that store all the time when I was a little kid, and it was a little different, different feel, different vibe. But other than that, Kyle, thanks for sharing all those memories with us and your amazing collection behind you. And I'm gonna not sleep well tonight trying to calculate how much money you've probably spent over your entire wrestling collection. I might cry myself to sleep trying to fathom that.
I think Kyle would probably too,
if he actually puts it down on paper. But before
it's only money.
It's
only money. You'll make more. You'll make more.
Yeah, can't take it with you, and you can always make more. That's
true. Right.
Make memories. Last question: Do you have a championship belt?
No.
Oh, come on. Oh.
People that do that, if I see somebody with a championship belt, I said, "Are you prepared to defend this belt?" That's what I would say. So unless you're willing to defend it at the moment's notice, I don't need.
You got a Motorhead T-shirt on. You should be able to defend it
for sure.
Falls count anywhere, and Earl Hebner will just pop out of nowhere. Is really what will happen.
All right, Kyle.
But-
show us that book one more time, and
Yeah.
tell everybody where they can find you.
There we go. It's available on Barnes & Noble and Amazon. Just search my name, search Jakks Classic Superstars. You'll find it there. You can find me on YouTube. Search Kyle Peterson. I got 2 YouTube channels with videos every single day. And then you can find me on the X at SirPaul64, _Kyle_Peterson on Threads, and on Instagram. So there you go.
Perfect. Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks, guys.